Hi, crafty friends. My name is Jeannie, and today I'm guest designing for Wow Embossing. I'm sharing 3 cards that use 3 darker cardstock colors, red, black, and blue. These cards require nothing but heat embossing, and I've never actually created a card that's just completely heat embossing, but I had this idea and I love the end results. I use the embossing powders Rose Glints, Metallic Gold Rich Pale, and Metallic Silver. So I decided to create these cards assembly line style and went through all the steps for each card at one time, which made it really fast to put together. And at the end, I had 3 completed cards. You'll be seeing each step of these cards, although I might edit out some of the repetitive steps that I use on the second and third card just to spare you, because I will take you through every single process step. I am using the Pretty Pink Posh Wild Rose stamp set and stamping it with the Wow Clear Ultra Slow Drying Embossing Pad, adding the coordinating embossing powder and heat setting it. For all my heat embossing, I do use an anti-static powder pouch just to help make sure that embossing powder doesn't stick to the areas I don't want it to. But the Wow embossing powders are anti-static, but this is just a second preventative measure just to make sure nothing sticks in random places. So the Wow Clear Ultra Slow embossing pad is really sticky, and I find that this actually works a lot better than other embossing pads that I have used or tried, and I really liked it. For the pairings, for the red cardstock, I'm pairing that with metallic silver. For the blue cardstock, I'm pairing it with metallic gold rich pale. And for black, I'm actually pairing it with rose glitz. And I didn't test any of these colors ahead of time. I know that their metallic colors are opaque, so they will be super bright on any dark cardstock. Rose Glints is a little different. It's a bit translucent, and so you get a completely different result. I just liked the color, and so I wanted to use it on black. And I was kind of surprised how it turned out, but I love how it turns out when you heat set it. It's just a very pretty rosy color that's just translucent, and I really like how it looks on the black cardstock, and it's just so subtle, and it's very different from the red and blue, so I wanted to use it regardless. For the floral images, I didn't have the coordinating dies, so I fussy cut them all out and I'll put them aside for later. For my cards, I normally do an A2 card size panel, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So for this main card panel, I'm actually swiping the embossing pad at the edges and adding embossing powder. And I'll actually be trimming another card panel that's a little smaller. It would be 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and this would mat right on top of this card panel. Because I'm adding the embossing powder on the edges, it will just be peeking out, and I think that it makes it cohesive. It's a little trick that I use whenever I have a card that has a large focal of embossing powder. So, say a large sentiment or a large heat embossed background. It just really adds that little touch that make the card super cohesive, and I think that it's a nice trick to have. I do this for this card because it's all heat embossed images, and I think that it just really makes it pop and pull the card together. So as you can see, the little edges peek out. I have this Simon Says stamp brush stroke stamp set, and it has these 2 lines in it, which adds just a little bit of a fun detail to the card panels. So I'll be adding it to all 3 card panels in the same location by using my MISTI, which makes everything so much easier. So I'll be adding the matching embossing powder to it, and I think that with the floral images, it's a nice detail to have these little lines. It's not super detailed or anything, it's just a nice element that looks good and pulls it together because my sentiment will lie near those lines. So I've never really created a card using just heat embossing, and I find that it's so easy. And I don't know why I haven't done it sooner, but this was really fun to put together. I spent maybe a little less than an hour and a half just to put these all together, and I had three cards to show for it. I tend to color often with my cards, and so this is one of my faster cards, and it just looks so pretty, and it looks like I put so much time into it, but all I did was heat emboss, and you can add more details to your cards, but I think that this card composition ended up being a really fun one, and I can just substitute any floral images for this. So I put my card together so I have an idea of where I want to put the sentiment. And I had debated between using the matching embossing powders or just going with white. And Wow Embossing has this opaque, bright white embossing powder that I personally love. It is so freaking bright. And I decided that because it's the sentiment, I kind of wanted it to pop. And so I chose to use the white instead of the matching embossing powder. And I love how it just stands out among those flowers. The flowers kind of steal the show at first, but then the sentiment, once I added it, totally draws your attention. So I do this for all three card panels in the same spot using my Misty, and then I have the next step of adding the floral images to this card panel and onto that main card, the larger card panel. So I use a microfiber cloth just to wipe off all that excess residue from the anti-static powder pouch, and it just comes right off. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm just gonna go take that card panel and adhere it to my larger card panel, and you can see that the embossing powder edges just peek out and it looks really awesome for the entire card. And this card looks super simple right now, but once you add that floral image to the entire card panel, it looks amazing. And one of my tricks for adding adhesive to my card panels is just to fold out the adhesive tape. Once I have it in a good location, I will just pull them out and it will be in the exact spot I need it to be. I sometimes forget this trick because I just don't think about it, and then my card panel gets adhered unevenly, which is really frustrating. I end up having to pull it off and creating a new panel, but that trick of the adhesive tape backer really helps because you don't have to take it off completely and you just align it where you want it to line up and you remove it and it'll adhere to the card panel. So I had a general idea of this composition. I had done it earlier because I wanted to make sure that the sentiment sat in the right place. And I decided to do the same for all three card panels. I just wanted to make it quick and easy and show you the differences of the embossing powder against the different cardstocks. And so I didn't want to make anything super different. Here I'm just gluing down all my little elements. I am also popping up the main bigger flower on foam tape just to add that little dimension. So there's only two flowers that I actually add foam to, and it's the ones in the corners. The rest I'll just glue down, and that's the card. It's rather simple, and I think that it just looks really, really pretty. I was also thinking about using these cards for Mother's Day, but I don't know. I just think that this is a perfect card for anyone. You can substitute the sentiment for anything because it's florals and it's so generic and you can just add that. But with the bright white embossing powder, it really pops. The sentiment is your main, like you, it draws your eye to it immediately. And then you take in the entire card as one, and I really like it. For the black, it just, the rose glints on this black cardstock looks awesome. It's so subtle, and I didn't think I liked it compared to the brightness of the gold and the brightness of the silver, but it really does look really good. So I am only showing you the steps of putting the black card together. These are all three of the cards. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more, so I pulled out some pearl embellishments and added them around the sentiment. I chose white just so it would go with the sentiment and it really finishes off the card because there is a bit of empty space around the florals, especially in the top left-hand corner. And I think the embellishments really pull that together. So once I decide where I want these pearls, which always takes me forever because I overthink it, I'll glue them down and we'll skip that step. But once I figure it out, I will glue them down and that finishes off the card. So I really hope you enjoy this project. It was really fun creating 3 cards just using only heat embossing. It makes things so much easier and it's a lot faster without coloring, and it's fun to play with all the embossing powders that you might have in your stash. So those are my 3 cards. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.